Hello and welcome to week 5 of the Ryerson Rams Women's Basketball Leadership Development Program. This week, we share with you some tools on giving constructive feedback effectively. This is a challenge for so many people in leadership positions. I work with executives and executive teams, and giving and receiving constructive feedback that's the area where these identified leaders struggle the most. And because they struggle with it, they choose not to give feedback to their constituents at all, which is a problem because without feedback, it's very difficult for us to improve our performance. Feedback is about improving our personal performance, improving the performance of our teammates, and as such, improving the performance of the team. Okay. There's a lot of different approaches to doing this effectively. There's one model that I think is quite appropriate for our team. It was shared with me by an executive coach. He works for Shopify, and it's part of their onboarding process for their leadership team. So he shared it with me, and I thought, I'm going to share this one with you. So their process is called OIA. And the acronyms OIA stand for Observation, Impact, and Action. So let's first start with an observation. An observation is really based on what we see. I saw this. You didn't box out. You were late for practice, or you were not at practice. What we hear, or what we heard, I heard you say this. Or in our case, sometimes you're not talking on D. Or you didn't call that ball screen. It could even be what we feel. When you do this, this is how it makes me feel. Okay? But those are observations, they're truths. Okay? There's no story onto it. Now, where we get into trouble and where it starts to rub people the wrong way is where we go from an observation to a judgment. So for instance, you have a teammate who's late for practice. And we go to them because we want to give them constructive feedback. And we're well-intentioned, but we say something like this to them. I don't think you're committed to the team. So why don't you think I'm committed to the team? Well, you're late for practice. Well, the observation is that the person was late for practice. The commitment piece, well, hold on a second. Now we're going in a whole other way. Now we're putting in what we think is the reason why that person was late. Okay? What you think is not important. What you've seen, heard, or felt is the observation, is the only truth. So start with the observation. Start by sharing that with someone. And the conversation could start like, can I share an observation with you? Can I share something with you that I've seen? Here's something that I saw today in practice. Here's something I heard today in practice. Okay? But that's how that can start. Next is I, and I stands for impact. So what we then want to share is the impact that we feel this person's behavior has had on the team. And when we're sharing this impact, it's very important that we are owning this part that we're sharing. So this is where I'd make it personal and subjective. I'd say, in my opinion, or I think, or I believe, your absence at practice has this effect on the team, and may have this effect on you. Sorry, not effect, but has this impact on the team and may have this impact on you down the road. Okay, so we're trying to give the person a bit of insight into what the impact of the observation can be on the team from a productivity standpoint, the team from a togetherness standpoint, the team from a performance standpoint. And then we try to give them a picture of what the impact could be on them, and we own it. So it's in my opinion, I think, I believe. You're not saying this is fact. You're owning it and saying this is your opinion. And then finally, what we do is, so I'm just checking my notes here, we get to the actions. So we want to help this person move forward. It's not about the problem. It's not about the observation. It's more about how are we going to move forward? We want to have a solutions focus. We want to move forward and influence some new behaviors. So it could be a question to your teammate like, what are you going to do to make sure that you're on time? Or how can we make it that you communicate ball screens, right? And with this, this is where we have to understand who we're working with. Sometimes you could coach that person, so you're asking them an open-ended question like, what can you do to ensure that you're at practice on time? You're helping them come up with a solution on their own. Sometimes people aren't in a position to come up with a solution on their own. They're just not in the mind frame, or maybe the time is such that there's not enough time for it. So that's when it's important that we have some alternatives in our back pocket. So someone's late, you need to leave earlier. Okay, someone's not calling ball screen. Call my name and the action twice. So Jason, ball screen. Jason, ball screen. That's something that I know we practiced last season as far as communicating what was going on the floor. But you're either coaching them to help them come up with some solutions on their own, or you are giving them alternatives. Suggesting is what I should say. Suggesting alternatives and seeing which one can stick with them. One of the things that I communicate with the clients that I have is, just like you working on your ball handling or your shooting, the first time you started dribbling a basketball or the first time you started shooting, you probably weren't very good at it. And the same thing goes for giving constructive feedback. I'll be honest with you, when you start this, you will probably suck. But like all those other things, the more you spend time on it, the more you practiced, the more you got better at it. And you fumbled with it a bit, and you made some adjustments, you check back with some best practices, you get some coaching on it, and you get better. I say the same thing to my executive clients, and I'll say the same thing to you guys. You got to practice giving constructive feedback. I saw in TDP that some of you stepped out of your comfort zone, some of you practiced some personal courage, and you challenged the process, especially as it pertained to reflections on week one. Some of you said, the contribution from everybody, from those who did send their work in, was like an 8 or a 9 out of 10, but the participation was a 5. Okay, it's a bit subjective, but nonetheless, you already started to put yourself out there, challenge your comfort zones, and try to give your teammates some constructive feedback. Use the OIA tool over the summer when you want to give people constructive feedback. This is what I've observed. No judgment associated with it. Here's what I think, I believe, in my opinion, feel that this is the impact on the team and on you. And then finally, how do we move forward with action? So either an open-ended question so that person can start to problem solve for themselves, or you make some suggestions as far as some alternatives for that person to be successful. And remember, it's all about performance improvement. Performance improvement for your teammate. If you're practicing giving constructive feedback, this is performance improvement for you and performance improvement for our whole team. It's part of the championship mindset. Hope you enjoyed this.